Welcome to So What, the Trust Insights live stream. I feel like we need to update the tagline because analytics and insights is still relevant, but we cover a lot more. Like today, we're going to be talking about the LinkedIn algorithm and some stuff about that. So, how are things, John?
Good. I'm excited to dig into this. You've been covering LinkedIn for years, but it's always interesting to see what's going on as far as what types of posts work. And we had over in analytics for marketers today. We were talking about what do people think about LinkedIn and where things are, and people's opinions are all over the place. So yeah, I'm excited to see what you've dug into and what you've got.
So here's how this works. If you are not familiar, the Trust Insights has been publishing now the unofficial guide to the LinkedIn algorithm for marketers. So we've been publishing this now for several years, and the way we create this guide is pretty straightforward. LinkedIn is one of the few social networks where they, on their engineering blog and on archive.org and a few other places, they just publish. The engineers publish, hey, here's what we're building. Here's how we're building this stuff. Here's some really cool things. Just the other day, they were talking about looking at designing for scale, and they have this whole blog post that talks through sort of the queuing system for message queuing and the back-end architecture. And this is pretty cool stuff. What this means for a lot of us who are in marketing is that they're telling you how LinkedIn works. They're telling you how the newsfeed algorithm works. The challenge is, distinguishing between Kafka and RabbitMQ for message queuing doesn't translate into easy to understand practices for the average marketer.
So yeah, I've not played with Kafka recently. So
Apache Kafka is a pretty cool piece of software, but that's another show entirely. But what you can do, and what we do, is we grab this content from LinkedIn and we put it into a language model. Tools like ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Anthropic Claude, etc. And we will grab 70 to 80 different papers and posts and technical diagrams that they have, and put it into a language model and say, now, based on all this information, summarize it and tell us how the LinkedIn feed actually works. And what's great about this is it allows you to understand the technical language in terms of how it impacts our work as marketers, as opposed to, some of the details are extremely relevant, but they're buried under the technobabble, under the jargon.
This is so how much raw material do you run through this when you do this update?
So our current update is about 30 different sources. So these are the blog posts and the papers. It's about 120,000 words. And we are in the download, you can actually go to the original post if you want to check out any one thing. We'll it's not a secret.
Very cool.
So what we do then is take that analysis and structure into a guide. So this guide, it's available on the Trust Insights website. If you go into the Insights section, I probably should have put up a short URL, but we'll do that after the show. And we say, okay, well, what with all of these things, how does it impact our work? What do we do? So I figured today on the show, what we do is walk through the way the LinkedIn system works, and then what we should be doing as marketers for it. Now, I'm going to start off by saying there is no such thing as a LinkedIn algorithm. The algorithm, it doesn't exist, because there are 12 to 15 different pieces of technology interacting with the content that you post, making decisions and showing it. So the idea that there are this is one mythical master algorithm that's making decisions, it's not. It's an ensemble of different systems working together. That means, in turn, as a marketer, if you see someone hawking, hey, here's the secret algorithm hack, no.
Yeah, more snake oil.
You're not going to fool 14 different systems, some of which are explicitly designed to look for garbage. What they do is take into account a bunch of different factors that we may not necessarily think about as marketers, and assemble them. So the system can broadly be broken down into 5 major stages. So the first stage is, I would call it the annotation stage, content creation. So you write a post on LinkedIn, you're getting ready to write the post, you write your post, you hit submit. What happens? First stage, feature extraction. So LinkedIn software looks at the different features. What is the format? What are the words that are used in it? What are the images? What's the video? Is there audio? And then they map it to the knowledge graph. The LinkedIn knowledge graph is essentially a vectorized and embedded graph of probabilities of what connects to other things. So in this first stage, LinkedIn wants to understand what relationships does your new post on LinkedIn have to everything else that exists on LinkedIn. And that extraction creates a system, I would also call it like an index card's worth of probabilities that's going into the ranking system. So no ranking has occurred yet. It's just trying to digest your content. What you need to know here then is, and this is spelled out in the section, this first section of the guide, is you want to put in things that the feature extraction can understand. Things like hashtags. They are taken into account. Mentions of individuals and organizations. Your own profile as the author has to be complete and robust. Things like when it's being posted do matter. The format of the content tends to matter for generating good features. So that's part one. Then it's like one of those Rube Goldberg machines. The second stage is first pass ranking. Of these different candidates, the big one that we need to know about is called follow feed. Follow feed is a ranking system that LinkedIn uses that tries to determine what is likely to resonate. So follow feed looks at a few different things. Who are you connected to? So your first degree connections are important. And then second, are those first degree connections likely to interact with your content? And so LinkedIn is going to be looking at you, your content, your profile, the words and phrases and expressions and jobs and titles and all that stuff that's in your profile, and then doing the exact same thing for your first degree connections. Who are those folks? What is in their profiles? What do they write about? What are they commenting on? All the words and phrases and characteristics. And the follow feed first pass ranker, it essentially tries to build a set of guesses as to, okay, here's who I think in your immediate network would find this content potentially useful. And so it basically comes up with a scoring list and a list of names at this point in the system.
That's interesting. So it is critically important who are your first degree followers then, because that will determine where stuff shows up on that first pass.
Exactly. So if you are marketing to a specific type of audience, you should be connected with them on LinkedIn, right? So if you were a buyer of mine, I would want to be connected with you. If you are not a buyer, I might not want that connection because it might not be relevant. So the folks who have, a gazillion and a half connections, they are potentially not reaching their audience because they're maybe more irrelevant people than relevant people. And when these embeddings are made, they're made on probabilities. They're made on guesses. It's like who's going to be who should be seen, who should even see this content. The other thing is it matters what the content is. So if I put up a post on podcasting, and John, you have a lot of podcasting content in your own profile and in your own feed, the probability of you seeing that particular post is pretty high. If I put up a post about pogo sticks, Katie's favorite example, and you have nothing at all in your profile about pogo sticks, even though you're in my first degree network, you're probably going to be less likely to engage with that. So the first pass ranker may say, you know what, maybe John's not a good candidate for this particular piece of content. So once your post passes first pass ranking, it goes into second pass ranking. This is where a lot of very interesting systems refine the guesses to decide who to serve it to. And there's a few different things here. There's things like dwell time, a multi-objective optimization, ranking, and this is where the rubber meets the road. So first, the dwell time. Dwell time is measured in two ways. LinkedIn, their backend systems try to guess how long is a user going to spend with a piece of content. So if you're on your phone and you're swiping through LinkedIn and you see a post, and you and I are connected, and you see a post mine, and you just scroll it past it, you've effectively given it a dwell time of 0. Like, okay, that wasn't of interest to me. LinkedIn monitors your not only engagement with, but just how long you view any particular piece of content, and that goes into one of the two dwell time predictions. So the p skip model is the short dwell time one, saying what is the probability that John's just going to skip this post, and then the longer one is what is the probability that John's going to spend some time reading this post and maybe interact with it. Those are two parts of the second pass ranker. So part of what you've got to do as a marketer is how do we hook up, how do we hook someone's attention, get them to stop scrolling?
Yeah, that's interesting. And so they're both of those characteristics are tracked. That's, one is if there's 0 dwell time, you get the 0. But if there's stuff where you stay twice as long, that increases the probability that it's considered quality stuff.
That's exactly right. So the longer you spend on a piece of content, that particular factoid is tracked, and increases the likelihood that it's going to be shown to other people. So you want people to stop, which means you've got to do stuff. You've got to have stuff that slows them down. Images in your posts tend to, particularly if they're attention getting, a good opening hook tends to help. Seeing other people's engagements tends to help. And then probably I would call it the not so secret carousels. So multi-image or multi things that you have to swipe through left and right or click through, they slow people down considerably. So you may want to do some testing with carousels to see if, like on Instagram, if that's enough to get people to stop and at least passively use the little swiper. There's two other things that they look for. One, what is the likelihood that the audience is going to engage? So liking, commenting, sharing are the three major mechanisms that an audience can engage with. LinkedIn looks not only at the raw numbers of those, but they look at the number of those that happen within the first hour of a post, because it's looking for how quickly should this be shown to other people. And so if you can get some early engagement quickly from relevant people in that first hour, your posts tend to do better.
So would you say that that's, you shouldn't be automating stuff or doing something so that something gets posted at 11 at night or something, because you'll never get any first hour action?
That, I mean, it depends on who your audience is and where they're located. But certainly for me, having a mostly American audience, posting at 3 a.m. probably not a good strategy.
Bad idea. Yeah.
Probably not a bright idea. The other one that's very interesting is that there's what they have called upstream metrics. They published a paper about this about 5 years ago. Upstream metrics are the probability that you, as the creator, will also engage, right? So that means that when someone comments on your post or whatever, you come back right away and you have a conversation and you interact with them. Their algorithm is trying to figure out what will get you as the creator to come back, and what will incentivize you as a creator to make more stuff for LinkedIn, to get you to create more higher quality content. And so those, again, if you want things to do well, you probably should, block time on your calendar to spend time on LinkedIn, interacting with people who are on your posts, always, going back and at the very least liking other engagements on there, but having real conversations. LinkedIn wants to see that.
Yeah, that makes sense, because it's that whole, they want the comment section just to light up.
Exactly. They want people spending time. They want people spending, swiping and scrolling and seeing all the ads that are out there. So that's the second pass ranker. It goes through all these stages and comes out. And then there is a third stage, which is less about ranking, more about cleaning things up. So that this is looking for a content diversity check. Is the content that's being shared sufficiently different from other content that's worth showing? Is it a duplicate? What is the level of quality? What is the likelihood that it's going to take off? So this stage is all about what happens is the content novel. You don't want to see like 12 job postings in a row. You don't want to see 12 text only posts in a row. It will adjust that. The re-ranking stage looks at freshness, and then looks at the quality of the content. And there's two different systems there. One is generally is the content going to be good, and two is the content potentially harmful. If you fall afoul of trust and safety, your content's gone. It will get seen by no one.
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting that there's, this is a whole separate thing. Like first you've got the scan, is the content worthwhile? But now having a bunch of other gates as to the qualitative ranking of that content. That's interesting.
Exactly. So one of the things interesting is that this is about the content itself, but not about the interactions. The interactions themselves don't seem to be monitored in the same way. Trust and safety will pick up like blatant abuses, but all of those completely crappy AI comment bots seem to be escaping LinkedIn's notice.
That's a whole separate rat hole. I don't know if you want to touch on that now, or is it just Slop City, or
it is. I mean, and part of the reason why LinkedIn has a hard time dealing with that is because a lot of those services are browser extensions. So it's not something plugging into an API that you could block easily at the door. It's letting an AI take control of someone's browser, and then when you look at the sort of the placeholders and templates that these tools use, they're all exceptionally similar. It's great insights on marketing, John, and the little rocket ship emoji.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So, and that's you lit that up for me, because I've seen all of the LinkedIn suggested ones, and I was like, why can't they control those dupes? But so yeah, I totally forgot that those are extensions and plugins that are doing that, and so that's a whole different level of security headache for LinkedIn to have to jump on board.
Yeah, because they can't police the browser. There's no way for them to figure out that you, the human, are not just this idiotic. And so this section here is all about then for passing the re-ranking system. Is your content any good? Is obviously important. But what's interesting is it content that people will want to engage with? So something that's a really long, thoughtful piece that no one does anything other than hit the like button will not do as well as saying something stupid and then having the comment section light up.
Yeah, we keep coming up against this of the kind of optimizing for the stupid, idiocracy strategy, but I guess there's no way around that.
Not with the way the systems are balanced right now. That's one of the big challenges with this, is that it is optimized for engagement. Well, what gets people to engage? Anything that provokes a strong emotional response, as opposed to something that makes you think. So you'll do well on the dwell time, but you won't get the engagement if there's a very thoughtful piece like, oh, that's interesting. I think, I got to go away for an hour and think about that. That piece of content will not do well because someone went away for an hour to think about it.
To come back and think. Whereas if you're constantly lying and instigating stress, you're going to light it up.
Exactly. Or even just, silly stuff like having a poll, pineapple on pizza, right? People will engage with that.
Yeah, that's at least one bright side. It doesn't need to be like complete garbage. You could is compelling polls or provocative questions. At least that can be some quality content.
Exactly. So that is what happens at the re-ranking section. You have all these things to remove duplicates, to filter quality, and then the last part is just going through the sort of the technical pieces, where it gets marked up, where the system tracks it, and then it gets deployed. The video gets compressed properly. And so for the average marketer, within the guidebook itself, there is a checklist. Here's what to do section by section for your content. One of the things that this checklist is designed to do is help you as the marketer figure out, what do I need to do to create good content on LinkedIn? Here's the hack for this. You can use this as a prompt in generative AI. So you could take this and say, I want to evaluate my content for LinkedIn. And I want you to here's my content, evaluate it, and then tell me how well it aligns with this checklist. So a lot of the stuff that we produce now as Trust Insights, we want to be not only usable for humans, but also usable for machines. So for example, if I were to take this checklist here and say, let's take this whole thing and we'll put it in a, open up a text editor here, just put a prompt to say, your goal is to accept content from the user for a LinkedIn post and evaluate it against this set of guidelines. Determine how well per item the user content answers the key questions. Provide step-by-step, item-by-item analysis, and then a summary. And we'll put in this straight from our LinkedIn guide. And just to make sure it doesn't get completely lost, we'll just put this at the end as well. Copy this over. Let's go into Google's Gemini. I'm going to use Gemini, but you can use ChatGPT. You can use whatever you want. Create a new thing. Call this LinkedIn Post Evaluator. Paste that in. Hit save. And now we can start a chat with it. So we've taken this section from the LinkedIn guide and turned it into some content. So now if I go into, let's see if I've got a good, slightly trashy post that I can put in here. No, that one's not even written yet. Let's see. Here we are. I'll paste this in and I'll say evaluate this LinkedIn post per the system instructions. Okay, so I didn't define the target. Encouraging thoughtful stuff. Headline optimism. Post currently lacks a headline. The introduction is ineffective. The text format is suitable for content. It's well structured. Could benefit from some knowledge graph alignment. Lacks hashtags. So this is basically saying, you didn't do such a hot job with this post. But that's the purpose of this section of the LinkedIn guide, is not just for you to read as a human, but to use it with AI.
Yeah, right. Just grab that as a straight prompt. And that's up on the site now. So you can go ahead and grab that as soon as you want to get that.
Exactly.
And go.
One of the other things that LinkedIn mentioned that I thought was very interesting in their core content is the LinkedIn control systems, the ranking systems, particularly the ranking system for the second pass ranking, which is here. The model weights that are essentially the statistics for how it makes decisions are updated daily. So the LinkedIn knowledge graph and the second pass ranker, its underlying model updates daily, which means that if you find a LinkedIn hack, right, that works today, there's a good chance it ain't going to work tomorrow because the system will have just recomputed its weights overnight.
Yeah, right. It's constantly moving targets. So.
Exactly. So that's what is going on with LinkedIn as to how the system works from the moment you hit post until it appears. It goes through all these 5 major stages, all the pieces for each stage. For optimizing for LinkedIn, it really comes down to adhering to the general best practices of the system, trying to optimize your content for the way it works. But more than anything, it's about who you're connected to and who you are interacting with. So one of the strategies that is known to be effective because of the way the knowledge graph works is for you to spend 15, 20, 30, 45, 60 minutes a day commenting on other content on LinkedIn with language that is relevant to what you want to share. So if you are writing about generative AI, you should be commenting about generative AI on other people's generative AI posts using comments that invoke those terms and topics so that you are interacting with other people's knowledge graphs. And when you next publish your next generative AI piece, the embeddings will align better. They'll match up better, and you'll have a stronger probability of being seen. You will see this very, very quickly. If you were to go out and comment, for example, on a post that Katie made, you will see Katie's posts more yourself in the next couple days on LinkedIn until that stops. But she will also start to see more of you as well.
Right. So the more active you are, the wider a net you're casting.
Exactly. So if you have, say, if you're in business development, and you're maybe doing some account-based marketing, and there's a list of like 10 CEOs you're trying to get the attention of, guess what you better be doing?
Lovingly examining their LinkedIn feeds every day.
Exactly. And then commenting, engaging on it, and things, so that ideally they engage back with those comments, and then ultimately they see your stuff. So the next time you put up your pitch, you will see that. We have a couple of comments in the chat. Hazeldine saying, now we'll see pineapple on pizza polls for the rest of the year. Well, I mean, there's only what, 25 days left in the year.
That's a plug for analytics for marketers too. That's it. Those are instant fighting words over there if you want to come check out the A4M Slack community.
Exactly. And then Greg saying it's important. Content should be certain like the character count. Yes. Generally speaking, this is something that our friend Hannah Zabo talks about, and our friend Ashley Foss talks about. Big comments, comments that are a couple of paragraphs long, that actually require some thinking, tend to do very, very well for being surfaced, for surfacing a piece of content in someone else's feed, and for having your stuff be detectable, which makes sense. If I just say on a LinkedIn post, haha, good job, John, there's not much for a language model to embed and match there. If I say, hey, John, did you think about using generative AI to better align sales copy with someone's, say, LinkedIn profile? There's just more words. There's more embeddings. There's more. If you think about the word cloud of your content, and how well does it overlap the word cloud of all the words in that person's profile? Haha, good job, and a rocket ship emoji. There's not a lot to overlap there.
Not delivering for you.
Exactly. So that's our current understanding of the LinkedIn feed. Now, the thing that I always pay attention to two things. I check this blog regularly to make sure that when new stuff comes out, that we incorporate it into the guide. But also, the other place that you should be spending some time looking on a regular basis is Cornell University's archive. This is probably the place to spend time for any kind of new academic papers, and you will see tons of them. You're looking for papers published by Microsoft employees, specifically to LinkedIn. You can do it there, or you can do it in Google Scholar. Google Scholar is another great place to look for those papers written about LinkedIn by Microsoft employees, because the chances are they're talking about things that they're patenting or that they're going to presenting. A great conference to pay attention to for this sort of thing is there's an event called NeurIPS. NeurIPS is Neural Information Processing, is one of the headline conferences for extremely technical AI, and all of the big tech companies like Microsoft, which is LinkedIn's owner, presented these things because they're all trying to poach talent from wherever they can get it. So when you look at the NeurIPS papers that are shared, there's a lot of competition saying like, hey, check out the cool stuff we're doing at LinkedIn. You should want to work here. Which benefits us as marketers. You say, I'll take that paper. Thank you very much.
Right. Give me the inside look.
Exactly. So that's what's in the current version. Like I said, we update it. There's also a section here if you are curious about the individual actual technologies that are being used. So if you are a highly technical person, you can enjoy that as well. But that's what's new on LinkedIn and what you should be doing. So with that in mind, John, what are you currently doing on LinkedIn, and what are you going to possibly do differently?
Yeah, well, just the fact that you could take that entire copy to build a prompt and just run stuff through it before you post and say, hey, give me some pointers on how to better meet this scoring criteria here. Like that can definitely give you an edge, because otherwise it's just the normal spray and pray for me. It's like, okay, what do we plug in today? Oh, but that is a question too. I've still been going to, myths on the street that you can either dispel or, say are, no understanding of. But one is first comment having link, like having no outgoing links in the body of the post itself. And then other is times of day to post. There's been a lot of stuff people saying like, you don't want to be doing 10 posts a day. Like it should be one a day of quality stuff as opposed to a lot of, chum. So either of those legit or have any bearing in your research?
We do know time of day matters because that's implicit as to your audience, right? So if your audience, here's the thing, if your audience interacts with everything that you post as often as you want, right? If you put up a post and 100 people like and comment in the first hour, and you can maintain that hour by hour, go for it. Most accounts probably are not going to have that kind of pull. And as a result, you're better off with fewer stuff where you're more guaranteed engagement than the bigger stuff. The same is true of links. So there is no evidence in the technical documentation itself that says, having a URL in there is going to, ruin your visibility. There is no evidence to the contrary either. There's just not in there. People have said that having a link can diminish that. If I had to guess, based on what we understand about the system, having a link in the post means that someone clicks off of it, right? What does that do to your dwell time?
Right, yeah, straight to zero.
Right, people click out and they're gone. If you put the link in the comments, then what happens? People don't click away; they stay with the post longer. So it may not be the feature of a link may not be the thing that's causing it may be a dwell time issue.
That's a really interesting point. I hadn't thought of it, because you could just be triggering it. Yeah, because I know for a fact there's no point in me posting stuff that links direct to YouTube. Like that just never gets even a single view, regardless who it is. But yeah, and that makes sense now with dwell time being zero if you do that.
Yep. The other thing that people have done to varying degrees of success is have what they call pods. This is first popularized on Instagram and does work on LinkedIn, where you have a consortium of 10 or 15 or 20 people who all sort of dogpile on any post that people put up. So I've been a part of them in the past, where someone will post a link, everyone agrees that every person gets one link per day, and every member of that community goes and engages with everyone in there, which can get overwhelming if you have like 20 people in there. However, it is somewhat effective because, again, things like engagement metrics do matter. However, the people who are in the pod need to be relevant to you, right? So otherwise, if you are in the pod and you're marketing B2B marketing services and everyone in your pod is into knitting,
yeah, right. Well, that's really interesting. I hadn't thought about that, because that, pods like this have been around for every social network that we've ever seen. But now the fact that it's doing this analysis as far as, okay, who are those people and what are their backgrounds and is this content relevant to them? That creates a whole nother level that can basically disqualify all of that stuff and make it harder to get even to your initial audience.
Yep. And think about what else happens with the pod. Everyone you go into your Slack group or your Discord channel or your group text, whatever. So you post the link, everyone goes and says, yeah, run over there, clicks it, and, clicks like, says, good job, John, puts the rocket ship emoji and then leaves. Where'd your dwell time go?
Yeah. Again, 2 seconds or less on every one of those.
Exactly. So the algorithm having so many features means that it's harder and harder to mess with. It's not impossible, but it's harder to mess with.
How about, so is it more along the line of these need to be real marketing campaigns of like, hey, we're going to do this on this day and go like it and, give us some real solid feedback, and you should be promoting it to your audience, not to just these arbitrary groups of people? I mean, that seems like the right way to go, the painful organic path, but does seem like the way that would get the results you want.
The painful organic path is probably your best bet for long-term success, right? So there's any number of gimmicks that can work in the very short term, but they have a very short shelf life. creating stuff that people actually want that's targeted towards your buyers is the sustainable long-term path, because you're going to make that stuff anyway, right? Even if it gets like 2 views on LinkedIn, that's stuff that you can then repurpose for your HubSpot instance, for your email newsletter, et cetera, and it may do better in those places. So it's not try to hack the algorithm. It's just provide stuff that people want.
Yeah, right. Make great stuff. Easy.
Exactly, which is really hard for a lot of marketers.
Indeed.
So with that, anything you're going to do differently now?
Yeah, again, it's, run it against the prompt and just have it give you some feedback. And for me, it's definitely, I need to give a lot more thought to posting times, because I currently usually have LinkedIn on my list of like, okay, crack of dawn or at the end of the day when things have wound down. But I really need to be dropping stuff at like 10 or 11 in the morning so that I'm getting that lunch group and I'm getting West Coast on their first touch. So yeah, I need to go back and rework the calendar and think more about, when that stuff actually happens instead of it. It should not be on my convenience.
Right, exactly. I mean, if you think about it, anywhere from 11 to 1 Eastern time for you and your audience, that gets you 11 a.m. or the noon lunch crowd on the East. It gets you the 9 a.m. crowd on the West Coast and stuff like that. It gets you end of day in the UK. It gets you, it'll get the early morning crowd in Asia. So wherever your audience is based, look at that. One of the easy ways to figure that out, if you've been sharing content on LinkedIn for a while that links back to your website, go into your Google Analytics and look at your time of day traffic from LinkedIn, specifically from LinkedIn as a matrix, as day of week, time of day, and just look at it, make it into a heat map and see when your stuff currently is getting traffic. And then maybe you do a test set of campaigns. You do a post. It's a lot of content, but you do a post maybe every 6 hours for a week and see when during the week you get some traffic.
Yeah, right. That would be great, because then the next week you go back and look, and the heat map is just here's what your schedule's supposed to be.
Exactly. The other way to do that is more broadly looking at how do you what is the time of day that the audience is typically active. So some pieces of software like Agorapulse will actually do that, where they'll have the audience activity map built right in the platform.
Yeah, I can see that being a complete advantage as far as, having your stuff get some action as opposed to just getting 0 likes all the time.
Exactly. Our friend John tosses in here and says, most marketers I know want tricks and the quick hit reward. The thinking is usually short term. By the time things are important, those marketers have been moved on. I mean, it kind of reminds me of the old adage that if you're seeing it at a conference session, it no longer works.
It's too late. But there are always lottery winners. The key is you got to be the first or second person. But yeah, luck is not evenly distributed, right? If you're early on the thing, you get all the luck, and everybody else trying to catch up, yeah, they get the bum tips.
Exactly. I mean, that's one of the basics of any social network is whenever a new feature gets announced, we have voice chat now. You need to be using that aggressively, because they will typically overweight that new feature for a little while to see if they can get people to use it. Meta in particular and its properties are well known for that. We have a question from LinkedIn. Anything we can say about lead generation and targeting in relation to the LinkedIn algorithm? Lead generation itself, I mean, so here's the thing that I've certainly noticed in our data, and I've heard from folks in like analytics from marketers. Company pages and company profiles and stuff basically get nothing. For example, we've been posting the same update across our personal accounts and the company account, and without fail, you get no engagement whatsoever, on the company account. And this is across different size personal accounts. So I have a fairly large account. We have some folks who have less large accounts, and even the smaller personal accounts do well with engagement. The company stuff, crickets. I mean, you post because you made just one extra checkbox in your software, but the reality is there's nobody home on company stuff.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. We could probably do more of a dive into, is like, why is that the case? Or is it just the classic Facebook thing of like, they want you to turn on the ad spigot and basically nobody gets any traffic if you're a company page, because that's how the world works?
That's exactly it. I mean, it's pay up.
It's all right. Shakedown. Happy holiday shakedown.
Exactly. It's always the same shakedown. The workaround for that is, getting your individual personal marketers to be sharing stuff as appropriate and creating non-promotional content the rest of the time.
Yeah, stuff that don't because again, from what we've seen, if they just start parroting stuff and spamming, they get kind of put into a different batch of stuff where if they see it and like it, that's not going to help you.
Exactly. So, I mean, back in the old days, we used to have a ratio of 5-1. So the recommendation back in the old days was for every one promotional piece of content you put up, you need to have 5 pieces that are non-promotional, and that are still valuable, that people still want. So it's sort of like inverse tentpole strategy, whereas most of your stuff has to be non-promotional, and once in a while you throw out the, hey, pay up.
Yeah, you earn the right to throw a pitch in there sooner or later.
Exactly. So that would be some content strategy stuff to do. Any final parting thoughts, John?
Just get down to work on LinkedIn. There's the quick one on the way out though too. Now, I still view this as your best odds and best options if you're in business. Like nothing else comes close. Is that still the case?
It depends on your business and where your audience is. So, for example, if you have a specific audience demographic, they may be on TikTok, right? They may be on LinkedIn. They may be, it's generally accepted to be true that if you're in B2B, LinkedIn is probably the best place to be. But I will say that it depends on the industry. If you are in B2B tech, LinkedIn is the place to be. If you are in, like, for example, industrial ball bearing B2B, your audience isn't on social, period, because they're at the golf club, the golf course. So the number one thing you can do there is in things like your email newsletter, do a poll, do a survey, like, hey, where do you spend when you're want to talk about work, not like golf or politics, but when you want to talk about work, where online, if anywhere, do you go? And then you have your bullet list of, LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter and all these other places. That survey, and you should probably run it like quarterly, is a good idea.
Yeah, that sounds like good advice. That makes sense.
Yep. All right. So I think that's going to do it for this week. Next week, we should be back to normal. And then after that, we have one more live stream, and then we are off until the new year. So we got 2 more shows of the year. But thanks, folks, for tuning in, and we will talk to you on the next one. Thanks for watching today. Be sure to subscribe to our show wherever you're watching it. For more resources and to learn more, check out the Trust Insights podcast at trustinsights.ai/TI podcast and a weekly email newsletter at trustinsights.ai/newsletter. Got questions about what you saw in today's episode? Join our free Analytics for Marketers Slack group at trustinsights.ai/analytics for marketers. See you next time.